Happy Tuesday, everybody. Rodney, how you doing, buddy?
I'm fantastic. How are you, Andy?
I like that background. It's very golfer-esque.
It is. I'm getting to work out of my media room today because when I went to the office, I left my computer that I do the YouTube channel on with you at home. So guess what? Rodney got to come back home and do it from his home office.
Look at that. We should make that. We should do more shows like this then. At least 5 times a week, get you home.
Yeah, we should.
So, do we have to cover this? Did you do anything special over the weekend?
Nothing special. I think I'm getting a little burnt out on the heat. We play. Of course, it didn't stop me from playing golf every day, but played 18 Saturday and Sunday, and you know, what do you do?
That's commitment. Yeah, I just finished watching the Olympics. I just loved the Olympics. I mean, I love the whole thing anyway. So just that's what we're doing. Hope everybody else had a good weekend too. I know here in Tennessee it has cooled down a little bit, so it's not quite. It's heading into August on a good note as far as I'm concerned, weather-wise. My name is Andy Elliott. I'm a realtor here in Williamson County. I'm with my best buddy Rodney Wilds, who's a loan officer with First Bank here in Franklin. We're both in Williamson County. So the whole show is just we're chatting about the market, what's going on, and this is a big day. There's stuff going on this week, so we're going to be chatting about. But if you have questions about local stuff, Nashville and the area, surrounding area, our contact information is pretty easy to find. Description box, comments below, it'll all be there. So, should we start with what's happening?
We're going to start with the good stuff.
Start with the good stuff here. Oh yeah, here we go. Here we go. Rodney, the screen with a pip. Pip. There it is. Hit me.
All right.
Rodney.
Here we go. Let's take a look at this. I put this on a 3-month view so we can see basically March through August. Or it's actually a 6-month view here. But we have made some ground since last year. This was at the end of last year, back here in 24, and as you can see, over the 7 months, we have slowly crept up and get into the mid sixes. It looks like for a lot of people in our industry. I think Andy, it's what you had on bankrate.com.
Yes.
Or where you're getting that from, but our guys, what's really important, you can see through, like, let's take April right here where the cursor is, and you see these squiggly lines. These squiggly lines are what's called moving day averages, different time periods. So like the blue one's a 200 moving day average, and the purple's 100 days moving average, 50-day moving average, and 25. These are all now what I consider a floor of support for us. As you can see, as these moving day averages creep closer to the rates, as the rates get better for us, because when it's green, it's good. You can see whenever it touches these lines down here, it looks like it bounces off of them. If you can tell that in the screen, anytime it hits these lines, it looks like it's bouncing off these floors of support, which I think may lead to some consecutive days that we could continue to see rate improvements.
Oh, that's good. That's good. And for anybody that's not familiar with that particular chart, it's reversed. So I mean, when you're looking at the high numbers, it's actually good for us. And the rest of the world, like me, I see rates as low on the end. So
green is good on that chart. Yes.
Yeah, green is good, but still, I'm a visual heck with the color thing. But that's good. And so what I'm excited about in that chart, in any chart, and I know we've talked about this to death, but I consider it a principle. Here's the way I view real estate, lending, all of this stuff in a general sense. It's the human element that moves everything. It's how we feel about stuff that moves things. If the market is optimistic, stocks typically, I would expect, are going to rise unless it's time to dump at the end of the year for tax purposes. You know that. But when people are positive, good things tend to happen. And but the other thing that we need, that as humans, I think, is durability, a length of time when it's stable. And so
Hmm.
what I'm looking forward to is we've bounced around in this last couple of weeks. We were easily 710, something like that, a little bit over the sevens for a period of time. We got kind of used to it. I hate to say that, but then it's been in this 6.5 for several days, for coming up on a week now. Isn't that right?
Yes. Yeah. It's looked like about a week or so. Yes.
And so when we look at your graph, we see that stability, that's when people start thinking about making a move. I mean, maybe it's buying a house, whatever. It could be to another rental place, whatever, but making financial moves when we're more confident with what's going on. So, as always, hey, Ange, I know you always help us with this. If there's echo, you'll let me know, right, on the Rodney side. Appreciate it. So let's get started. Okay. Guess what Saturday is? Do we know what Saturday is?
It should be the 17th.
17th? Anything happening the 17th?
I believe I think there's something going on 17th.
There's something going on. Think about what's going on in the housing market. This is what it makes me sweaty. Here we've got, was the CPI numbers, did inflation numbers, they came out today? Was it 2.2? Look pretty good.
I think the it's coming out tomorrow.
CPI is coming out too. I thought somebody had said, I thought I saw the inflation numbers at any rate.
The stuff that had been adjusted down. Did you see all those numbers get adjusted down?
Yes. Oh,
All
is
the,
that what it was? Got it. Okay. Because they do that. They'll put out a number and then fine tune that thing. It's sort of like balancing a HUD, right?
they fine tuned them all down, and one of them was up to 0.5% when they're how they break it out, so that core index, and they
Yes,
break
yes,
out all
yes.
these the household goods and stuff. I don't try to follow all that, but yeah, they adjusted them all to where they really think inflation is cooling. I mean, it was a really good numbers for inflation and mortgage rates.
Yes.
So yeah.
So let's talk about everything that's going on, all the moving parts. So we've got high prices, we've got relatively high interest rates. We've got a housing market that seems to be struggling, but trying to fight our way out of that. But we're in a bit of a battle. It's the end of the summer, that's the kind of the buying season. It start to, in the next couple of months, we get into the holidays and it typically traditionally slows down a little bit. But we've got a market, low inventory, slow sales, that kind of stuff. And then we've got with Fed rate cuts coming up, or at least what they're talking about. And they're suggesting that they could do a quarter or a half. I've heard about half. And they could do this in August. There's no meetings in August, but they could do this before normal, which would be September, right?
Yes.
Right. And that's what they're talking about. And then you'll have the people, and I actually looked it up and did some research on it. There's people that have spoken about the rate cuts and the connection to recession. So I've got research if you're interested, but so, I mean, just add that to complicate things. Where I see rate cuts as being a good thing, some people are saying, what's happened 3 out of 4 times when they did rate cuts like that, it's been a recession. And then, so here's the last thing in the mix, and this is why it's kind of a mind-blowing week for me anyway. With all of that stuff going on with the real estate market, numbers, housing, then we've got this settlement, the NAR suit rule change comes into play this Saturday. Now, for me and mine, in my cohorts, we've been acting like it's already taken place. That's, sorry, I'm going to put my do not disturb on. Thank you. We've been acting like it's already taken place. We don't want to the 17th is not a magical day. It's just a day that now it'd be required. You couldn't have any more upheaval, in my opinion, in the housing market than all these things. Do you have any thoughts on this, Ron?
No, I'm following you. There's a lot going on right now, and like you said, the 17th has been a date that's been put out there, and the 17th was put out there because it's like 6 months after litigation or whatever date that was put out there was because of the litigation ended and there's a certain time period. So yeah, we've had time to prepare for this 17th date, but
Yep.
every other factor that's out there, the affordability issue is still the main thing that's driving everything. All this other stuff is rhetoric. When the buyers, when it's too expensive for a lot of people to buy, that's all that matters. It doesn't matter if they're signing an agreement Tuesday and they can't have any commissions on there, or they're tripling commissions. None of that matters when people are not, when affordability is the issue.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, and for me, and I think, I don't know why I have this broken record thing in my head. I just think it's been self-evident over the years I've been in business that when things are stable, people feel safe to come out of the nest. They feel, I'm going to buy a house because I think it's okay now. No FOMO. Nobody wants to buy a house and have values drop 20% in the next 6 months. I've never seen it happen, but that's the feeling you get, So, and that's what I'm talking about. The rates that you're talking about, long time duration. Once things, I think what I'm talking about is if things are less than stable, but we're trying to get it figured out. And you know what? Kudos to the powers that be, especially in my company, for the big changes. I consider them big changes. They start with 2 minor adjustments, but it turns into this big. It can be confusing. We'll talk about that. But for me and my company, they have been rock solid on. We'll all pull through this, and like you said so wisely, the market will sort this out one way or the other, good, bad, or indifferent.
Yeah.
And what they preach, and I don't mean that, you know what I mean? They're very strong about, we don't have all the answers, and we're just going to press forward, do the best that we can. And at some point, everybody, lenders, buyers, sellers, agents, realtors, will all find our stride. But for the time being, it's going to be a little bit, I don't want to say confusing, but disconcerting. That's what it'll be.
Yeah.
All right. So that being said, and that's not a bad thing. That's just where we are. And the fact that I think that we can see the light at the end of the tunnel, that makes me happy. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is the Bank of America has made a statement, and are they the only game in town? No. Ronnie and I did a show on like 27 different outlooks from 27 different companies, to include Bank of America, U.S. Bank, NAR, Realtors, all of them, and everybody had different opinions. But these guys are fairly good, and the article was, the housing market is stuck until at least 2026, and let me read some of this. Help may or may not be on the way for first-time home buyers frustrated by high mortgage rates and even higher home prices. Economists at Bank of America warned this week that the U.S. housing market is stuck, and we're not convinced, but Bank of America isn't convinced that it'll be unstuck until 2026 or later. The bank said home prices will stay high and go even higher. The housing shortage will persist, and mortgage rates will not fall much, even if the Federal Reserve finally delivers delayed interest rate cuts. How do you feel about that so far?
I feel like he's a little off. I feel like he's a little outdated already. I mean, we're already in the mid 6s on our rates.
Yeah.
And from every study that I have seen that we've talked about on the show, it's like in the high 5s will jolt loose some of these golden handcuff, people that's been on the sideline, the pent up demand of buying. But we have improving inventory, and our rates are getting into our housing is not going up 15% like it was, or 25% a year. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
to me, the housing is doing what it's supposed to do. It's just supposed to inch up barely. That's been our market forever. Is just a
Yeah.
barely steady incline. Nothing really huge. So when you factor that in, you couple that with the rates, decreasing in an amount, because like you've said, they've been steady. We've been at 7% for a good while,
And
and
people are buying houses. It
yeah,
was,
as it increases, more and more customers are entering the market. More and more first-time home buyers are entering the market. So I am not a. I'll be honest. I'm not a big fan of Bank of America's predictions. I think one, they're saying okay that it's a they use that term like stuck. Well, what's stuck mean? You know what I'm saying? Is it going to be 100% back? No. In 2026, it may be 2026 until we start eclipsing some all grandiose numbers that we've had in the past. But 2025, if the rate we are going right now, and every prediction that I see with customers coming off the shelf, it's going to be a great 2025, much less a decent 2024. So yeah, I'm a little bit on the positive side of this article. Like I think they're way too conservative.
and isn't that, and it's a great message to bring, because I admit that this, and I don't have a problem with it. It's this article is probably 30 days old, and so he's been outdated a little bit on that. I think the fundamentals are still there, but the point
Yes.
and the reason I mentioned that article where we have so many different opinions, these are just one guy's
Mm-hmm.
opinion, you know. And isn't it nice that they think this way? And it always seems like we're loosening up just a little bit, a little bit, a little bit. Because these days, I'll take any kind of win I can get,
Right.
It doesn't take much. So let's press on. It'll take many years to work itself out. There isn't a magic fix, and I have to agree with that. I don't
Right. Hundred
I don't
percent.
think we're off to the races anytime soon.
Well, there is a
Um,
magic fix. I mean, if you hit 4% rates, it's going to be a magic fix. That you're going to have so many people, because you're not going to have the relocation boom that you did during COVID. People are not relocating. With all the job stuff coming back and everybody's, that people moving around the countries, we're not going to see that again when rates hit. We're going to see a ton of refinances and a ton of purchases.
aren't you concerned though? I mean, there is a concern that if rates got that low that fast, people would jump at it, and all of a sudden it's going to be price city again. It's going to force home prices up again. I'm hoping for a gentle.
Sure, yeah, I think it would, but I don't think it's going to go from 6.5 to 4.5 either. So
Correct.
I think
Okay.
it's going to be a gradual go down, and as it goes down, as affordability gets better, and so you got one for affordability, people just entering the market's getting better,
Yeah.
um, and that's for all those people that's 25 to 35 living at home. That pent up demand in that box, and then we have the pent up demand with people that has houses that will be selling because they can trade a 3.5 for a 4.5 or 5% rate, but they don't want to trade that 3% rate for a 7% rate. So that section, in my opinion, will add a house minus a house. If they're not going to hurt the market, they're going to put a house on the market to sell, and then they're going to
Yeah.
buy one.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a sum zero total, right? Isn't that what you're saying? Yeah.
So it shouldn't hurt our, so that segment of population shouldn't hurt our inventory.
Yeah. And all right. So it's just, but then he talks about the lock-in effect, and this is what's going to last a little while. And I think that that's what you're addressing. The people already own their home effectively locked into the property after they've refinanced, getting a mortgage during the pandemic. Ultra low rates were available. For many, it just doesn't make sense to move. And who's going to move? We've got some great stories coming up on that. Who's going to move when going from 3 to 7? I've said repeatedly, I would never do that. I'm happy where I'm at. I would not lose my rate for 7%, and that's not going to change until that life event. For the people that are moving, it's the life event stuff that's happening: job change, relationship change, downsizing, upsizing. But there's an argument for those people that want to upsize that doesn't seem likely, because they're going from X amount of dollars to upsize to even bigger at 7%. That's like a bridge
Yeah.
too far, one gentleman was
Right.
saying.
Right.
Dave Leniger, who co-founded real estate giant Remax with his wife in 1973, said the lock-in effect means people who want to size up, just talking about, can't, and the next generation can't even get their foot in the door for starter property. The move-up market does not exist. That's interesting. I wonder if that's true. That's a pretty expansive statement there. Starter homes have doubled in value, and the owners would like to move up, but the problem is they can't take the mortgage rate with them. Wouldn't that be a hell of a program?
you may have stumbled onto something, Andy.
Yeah, keep that rate, take it to the next house. Is that possible? Is it? Wouldn't that be?
That would be nice.
Anyway, so Leniger agrees that the housing market is stuck for now, at least. At least he has a little gentler summation of that for now, at least. He urged our first-time home buyers to remain patient. Don't give up the dream. And we're all saying that, and this, your theory of buy a house when it's right for you still applies, right, Rodney?
I mean, it's. I mean, there's so many people right now that that the interest rates are affordable, and it's it fits their budget. It's what they want to do. So yes, there's a lot of people moving right now, and a lot of people buying and selling right now. It's just not like it was. It's just not crazy busy. It's but there is still a lot of activity.
There is. Yeah, there's still a big need to move, and when you got to go, you got to go. And those are the ones that are going to go anyway, that you can't stop that. It's the elective stuff. Let's move to wherever that has minimized. Now, with that class of person, typically they're well funded, and it kind of doesn't matter anyway, or it matters less to them, for those people that want to move electively, like vacation homes and things like that, they're typically not getting a lot of loans, maybe some, but they see things different. The people I'm focusing on, at least as far as the market goes, is that first-time home buyer, the people that have worked 10 years to get maybe that's a little bit much, but a number of years to get a down payment together to buy a house. And those are the ones that don't want things to go sideways because they've saved for years to make it happen.
Yeah, and we've talked about this all the time. They've been sidelined for a bit. I think they, for the last year or so, they haven't been sidelined. But during that COVID craze, they were sidelined, and once they got a little bit of pressure off of them, the rates went skyrocket. So,
yeah. So the forecast for stuck housing market cuts both ways. The spike in home prices padded the net worth of existing homeowners and given them additional financial flexibility. And it has, but if you want to tap into that, it's still, for the most part, you have to sell your house. Maybe not always, there's other methods, but it's a good thing. Your net worth goes up a little bit. But there's many Americans who are on the outside looking in. They'd like to buy, but can't afford to in these prices and these mortgage rates. No longer, the longer they're prevented from buying, this kind of stuck with me, and it's kind of a Dave Ramsey thing too. The longer they are prevented from buying, the more time they miss out on wealth creation. I mean, that's a tough one, because once you plant your flag and buy a house, you're getting equity, and time really is money when it comes to that, right?
Yes, and that's been my contention this whole time is like, it's worse to not purchase and pay 5% more year over year for that house than it is to pay 3% more on your percentage rate for 4 years until you can get it refinanced.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you're not building. That they're exactly right. You're sitting on the sideline, not building wealth. So if it's a $600,000 house, and in it, you waited 3 years till the rates got perfect. Well, you're probably paying 5% over 3 years. What is that? 30. You might be paying 700,000 for that house
Yeah.
in 3 years, but the additional payment on your mortgage interest wouldn't have been nowhere near $100,000.
Yeah. The thing that always stuck me, that struck me, and I heard this years ago, and I think it was even before I got into real estate in 2005, and that was whether you're paying your own mortgage or paying for rent, you're paying somebody's mortgage.
Mhm.
Somebody's,
Yeah,
even if the landlord owns the place, it's the same difference, You're paying it for somebody. It might as well be going into your own pocket, I guess, is the point.
yeah,
But here's the point to this article that kind of struck me, and it ties into our attitude determines your altitude in terms of the entire country and the housing market, at least the way I see it. In a recent Gallup poll, and I tend to have respect for those guys, just 21% of Americans said it was a good time to buy a house, tied for the worst reading in Gallup history. It's an overwhelming majority, 76% said it's a bad time to buy. The Bank of America economist said if the U.S. economy achieves the soft landing that it expects, meaning that inflation cools without triggering a recession, there's that R word again, there's a risk that home prices will rise even more than anticipated. On the other hand, if the durability of the recovery has been overestimated and a recession is on the way, home prices could tumble and affordability would ease. I don't like that. The last scenario I'm not crazy about.
well, okay, if the I just don't see affordability easing and
A
home
recession.
prices declining.
Right.
No, I think we're already in a recession. I declared that last week. You can go ahead and pin that up. I've already owe you a couple quarters on those Fed rate cuts a year or so ago.
Wait a minute.
Well, you might as well throw that roller coaster in there if you want to. Uh,
Do I still have that?
Either way, but no, see, I think I think our inflation numbers are coming down. I think we're in a good spot. But the Bank of America article, if you say, well, it's stuck till 2026, yeah, but in 2025, it's going to be unstuck, maybe not to the level of perfect, but I think we're on our way back, honestly.
I do too, but I thought it was an interesting. I tell you the one thing that I do agree about where the article has come from, the spirit of it, is I don't believe unless there's something traumatic, there's not going to be any shocking changes. I think that from here on out, hopefully it's going to be a gentle ride, whether it's up, meaning
Yeah,
not, or down, which is good, but it's got to be slow. Otherwise it's chaotic. It's that roller coaster stuff, and I think that that's what they're trying to say is nothing's happening too quickly. I'm kind of okay with that idea.
yeah. We'll wait and see. I mean, rates never come down as fast as they go up, so it's not the coming down game is slow. So, but you could wait. I wouldn't be surprised if like December was one of the bigger months of the year if we continue to see these softening numbers.
Yeah, and I have to agree with you guys that I think that it seems recessionary to me with what's going on. This is what Ange said. um, but I guess there's a way that I'm waiting for that official.
Yeah,
I'm waiting for it to call it because there's formatted ways that they determine that. That I know that Philip knows a better way of saying that, but there's ways to define that, and so that's kind of what I'm waiting to see. So the next thing that I wanted to talk about, and here, yes, we're gonna. I should. Do I have any? Yes. I didn't want that thumbnail, but there it was. Anyway, forget the stuck part. It's the NAR settlement is coming this Saturday, and we just got a few things to talk about. First, August 7th is about more than just industry rule changes. Let me tell you, what August 17th isn't just the day that offers, and this is interesting. I didn't even know this. It really wasn't what I was focused on. It isn't just the day that offers of compensation move out of the MLS. In most cases, that's already happened. And buyer agreements become mandatory across the U.S. That's mostly beginning to happen anyway. It's also notable for consumers. It's the first day that potential members of the class in the industry shaking lawsuits over commissions, can be officially notified about the NAR settlement and what their options might be. I did not realize that everybody involved is going to get a letter saying what's going on and what their options are. It's more than just industry rule change. It's about the consumer. And that part, as uncomfortable as this whole thing is, I am really glad to see it become consumer centric. You know, people are going to know what they're paying for, and get to choose if they want to or not. I am all in on that.
Yeah, I like this article because I've been focusing on really this part. You know, when they put out, what did they say, 170 page?
107 pages, yeah.
Yeah, 107 or 70?
I think that it's 107. I believe.
Okay, 107 pages of this thing. And, you know, when we talk about it, there's really those two changes, you know, about the buyer's representation agreement being signed and the commission not being listed in the MLS. That doesn't take 107 pages.
Mm.
So all this other stuff, you know, they have worked really hard and done a lot of work on protecting the agents and making sure that this ain't, you know, this is out of Missouri, so there ain't 51 other states that's going to come in behind them, or how many ever, and have another class action lawsuits and tie up the realtors business for 100 years. So, but it's interesting that they mentioned that there's still like 80 or 90 companies that have opted out, and they're just like, well, we're not participating in a settlement. I guess they're going to try to brunt that settlement or that on their own. I mean,
well, here's the way that breaks down, and it's fairly simple. That the people that were protected was everybody up to those that ran 2 billion, and then those companies, I think there was 9 of them. I don't know exactly what the number is. They had to work out their own deal, but everybody up to 2 billion are automatically covered by the NAR settlement, so that you couldn't get sued outright for things in the past. I mean, you're washed clean, so to speak. But if you're over 2 billion, you had to work out those on your own. Then there was one MLS. It was NWMLS, Washington State, and they're the ones that said, no, we're going to go our own way. We don't like what you're doing. And they had made changes they'd been making in preparation for this day. For the last few years, they've been making changes, and they felt they were compliant enough, because who knows if you're compliant? Anybody can bring a lawsuit, right?
Right.
But they thought they were compliant enough to not have to go with the NAR thing, and so they've apparently disconnected with NAR. But here's the point about in order to be protected by the lawsuit, you have to be a member of NAR, National Association of Realtors, and it takes a minute to become a member. You don't just pay your money and go, and you have to take classes. You have to, you have to do it. You have to qualify, so to speak. And there was a lot of people saying, "I'm quitting NAR. I'm getting out. I'm leaving. I'm heck with those guys." And it turns out there were several thousand that left, but now there's several thousand that have come back. So people were quitting NAR and then realized that they're out there on an island on their own. That's the way they felt. And that I'm reading a different article that you don't have, that they gained more than 29,000 members between April and August, pushing the NAR membership back up to 1.53. So everybody's kind of wanting that umbrella coverage,
That's not too surprising. If you think about like you're in the middle of this, you're a independent or agent or whatever, and then all of a sudden you out of the blue, NAR is settling for you, right? And so I bet some people got mad and frustrated and come back. That's kind of human nature.
Well, in fact, it is
a high school breakup, Andy. Sometimes they last and sometimes they don't,
Yeah. Oh, baby. I was sad, but I'm not anymore. Yeah.
It's such a bad decision.
But NAR didn't have, from a financial standpoint, when the suit was lost, they were into it for $5.8 billion. And
right.
by doing it, which would have bankrupted them. That's my understanding.
They saved the organization.
They saved the organization. So it went from 5.8 billion to 418 million, which is still a pretty big number, but it's not a death knell, But anyway, so what agents need to know: it doesn't matter if you've been an NAR member for decades or hours, as long as you're a member on or before the day 17th, the class notices are sent, you're covered. Which means agents still have a few days to try to get ahead of the expected class notification. This letter, who knew? I didn't know anything about that. Though becoming a NAR member usually takes longer than that, there's some indications that membership has ramped up recently in light of the deadline, with agents choosing to join or renew, which it's not cheap in Tennessee. The numbers in California, God bless you, it's like eye-watering. I mean, it's not cheap. To ensure they're protected from future commissions litigation. That's CYA. So if you're not a NAR member on August 17th, you will not be covered. Oh man. So here's what you were getting at. Most brokerages are covered by the NAR settlement, but not all. About 90, you are correct. 90 brokerages, my apologies.
Okay.
With a residential transaction volume of greater than 2 billion in 22 were left out of the deal. However, they get to manage their own situations, So 90 surprises me. I thought there was 9. I guess I'm talking about the big 9 that I'm thinking about, the big Keller Williams guys.
Yeah.
Not bringing them up specifically. Love you. You're good. All right. So let's get into the notices. Who knew that it was all about? It seems to be saying it's all about the notices. You have to be covered before somebody gets the letter and goes, I'm suing. That's the way I interpret this. All right, here we go. And this is going to be, we're going to get to watch this unravel for the next 6 months. The topic is confusion reigns on the eve of real estate commission change. I think that this article is based out of California. I don't care where it's from. It really paints some pretty interesting pictures. May I? Jump in, just jump in. A landmark, bing, bang. Wrong, yes, correct. Dang, okay. A landmark legal settlement A landmark legal settlement governing real estate commissions takes effect in a matter of days. Nevertheless, Nicholas Rosen of Castro Valley is still having a hard time getting agents to explain what will happen when he lists his home for sale next fall. Now, I'm not laughing. I've explained this before. I'm not laughing because I think it's funny. It's just, I don't know what to do with it. So my default affect is I laugh about things. Not everything, but this I do. If you're in trouble, I won't laugh, I promise. At this point, this is the guy getting ready to sell next fall. The reason I bring up this article, is because until you are face to face with sellers at the table or buyers at the table trying to explain that which nobody has been able to explain well yet, it's that changes the game. You know, you can read theory all day long until you're face to face with somebody going, "What?" and you're not crystal clear on how to answer that, because there will come a time, sales 101, we're going to learn how to handle those objections. That's going to happen. We all know this. So here we go. I digress. I'm back. At this point, this is again the seller. I thought this was so interesting. At this point, I have more questions than answer. I'm not really sure how the settlement will affect me, said Rosen, 38, an attorney who grew up in Riverside County. Nice place. I keep looking at the wrong camera. Nice place. I wanted to ask what would be in place of that traditional fee. Would it be a negotiated rate? Would it be a flat fee? She really couldn't answer. I'm not laughing at her. I'm not laughing at him. I'm saying, I can't wait till I'm in that position. Because those are good questions. Questions outnumber answers as realtors race to implement the biggest revision in decades to the compensation system. Any thoughts, Rodney, so far?
Yes. I'm just flabbergasted about, of course, I understand people going to write articles to get headlines, but confusion reigns on Eve. It's really not. It's like, if you're confused, what have you done? You haven't prepared. You haven't read these things. You haven't read the 107. I don't need to read the 107 pages. They really have just a couple that pertain to me and a lender. Mm-hmm. And I understand the overall ramifications of it, but it's like, if you haven't read it and understand it and have a plan to discuss this with your customers, the whole thing about this revolves around the customer. Like, the customer has to know what the buyer broker commission fee is, and it's negotiable, right? So everybody's making this case,
not to interrupt, just to interject, and I'll let you go back. This is for a seller, so just be clear on that. What that guy that was talking, that was the seller.
But I guess my point is that the agent can't answer it. Like, if I was in your shoes, I want all of these questions as an agent right now, because I know. If I was an agent, I would understand how this applies. I understand, and it's like, hey, it's negotiable. You don't have to pay that fee, but chances are people are not going to bid on your house. Let's look at realistically. Is like, this is what's going to happen. It's now, I ain't saying it's not a tough conversation. And the overall objective of this whole thing is in my opinion, is to reduce the cost that it takes to sell a house. And this is part of the government's affordability thing. This is the Department of Justice getting involved in trying to make these commissions negotiable.
I wonder
so, in my opinion, it's going to be a tough conversation, but it shouldn't be any confusion. It should only be, like, if I was an agent, I would be relishing. Can't wait till somebody asks me these questions, because I know how to proceed with MLS. I know how to sell the house and those sort of things. But I think that they're confusing two things. One, they're confusing what the actual bill's trying to do. And I think some realtors and other people are turning this into a commission thing versus what it's actually trying.
That's what his comments are. It's about how much commission he's going to get. He's going to be willing to pay. That's what's happening here. Yeah. And that's the point. That's the reason I brought this article to you. So let me continue. Sellers offers to buyer agents no longer can be made in a multiple listing service. That's the big deal there. I mean, that's the biggest rule change. The second one, sign in buyer representation before you go touring on homes, which includes, unless it's a touring agreement, which includes any money that will be owed to the buyer broker that the seller won't cover. And that's what's different. I'm bringing that up, and I think that was as clear as mud. When a buyer wants to see a house, they have to sign either a touring agreement, which is $0 and no connection to the agent other than the signing of the touring agreement. That's in print, $0,
Yeah.
pretty much. And it only lasts 72 hours in some examples. Or they sign a buyer representation agreement, which can be longer standing, that in that case, the buyer is going to know up front what the buyer agent is charging. Let's say it's whatever it is. Well, that was artfully dodged. I did well on that. So it's whatever it is. And whatever it is, if the seller isn't willing to come up with that, then the buyer is signing a contract saying they'll cover the difference. That's the deal. That's the deal. So all of a sudden, the buyer now has skin in the game when they buy the house if the seller doesn't cover it. Now, let's go back into this. Bing. Yes. Home buyers must now, and it's going to be some repetitive, but I'm trying to be clear. Home buyers must now sign contracts spelling out how much their agents will get paid before the agents can begin showing their homes. And that's the rule. There are buyers already, I'm getting all kinds of feedback from people that are pushing back. Well, I'm not signing anything. And the agent literally has to say, well, you can't see the house and nobody can show it to you. So until the consumer public gets that through their head, there's going to be a standoff. You know, it's just going to be.
Yeah.
Until now, such agreements were rare. Agreed. Most of the time when you have a representation agreement with somebody, it's kind of like you're trying to get to know somebody, and you go and see a couple of houses and see if the relationship is going to work. And a little like dating, not to be crude, but it's a little like that. And if you guys get along, then you'll sign a buyer representation agreement long term, but not initially. Now you're signing a contract. Hey, how you doing? Sign this contract, you know?
Yeah. You owe me, take the median house price in America is 400,000 probably.
You owe me 12.
You owe me 12,000. That's a tough pill to swallow.
That's a tough one. So, but you'll see what I'm getting at. Agents said it's going to take several months before I agree with this 100%. Agents said it's going to take several months before buyers, sellers, and agents figure out how to operate under these new rules effective August 13th in most of Southern California. I said I think this is based out of California, but for the rest of it applies. It's going to take several months, and that's what I was saying earlier. Going to take us a while to figure out the flow. No doubt about that, right?
Oh yeah, this is what I'm looking forward to, is all the craziness that you'll get to see. Just the different. I don't think I'm going to see a uniform contract anymore. I think seller commit, like I said before, the buyer broker commission is a negotiated item. It's going to be in the contract. And so the payment is going to be, that's what I'm looking to see. I'm just waiting for chickens or something, or a car or a guitar, something, old pair of cowboy boots.
That's what in consideration of means. Doesn't have to be dollars. It can be whatever.
I mean, we've seen buyers give, try to offer sellers, which is not appropriate, whiskey, apple pie, when those contracts were they're sifting through contracts. It's like,
there's so many jokes.
I'm looking forward to all the different, but I think those are challenges versus confusion. I hate that word confusion after we've had all this data for so long and we know what to do.
But let me press through for this. And I'm not judging one way or another, but there was a reason that I picked the article. It said, am I worried there's going to be confusion? Yes, of course. Caleb Gonzalez, a broker out there in Dana Point. Do I think there's going to be a period that we're going to transition into clarity? Absolutely. We have to continue, just allow ourselves to adapt and evolve. And it's already happening, but it's official starting Saturday. It's like that Marine thing, adapt and whatever it is. We're adapting and evolve. We're in the midst of change. And the thing that frustrates people and scares others is there's not yet a concrete answer. There's some questions that are being asked about what's the implication of these rules that even the higher ups can't answer. If they're saying like, we don't know yet, we just have to wait and see how this works out. But it ends up at the kitchen table between me or somebody like me and the consumer. Some California home sellers said they were expecting more from the settlement than they appear to be getting. Apparently that's connected to that notice. They anticipated a drop in the typical 5 to 6% commission rate. I'm reading this for anybody's out there. I'm reading this. They're hoping to shed the burden of paying buyer commissions. This is what people are starting to think. Perfectly fine. We have to establish value. We have to prove our value. But this is what's going to start changing things. Hell no, says Donna Johnston, 53 of Studio City, said when asked if sellers should continue paying buyers commissions, why should we? It's a separate transaction. But the local real estate brokers doubt those changes will occur. While the mechanics of their business will undergo major alterations, that's what it says, the current compensation system will remain largely intact. We'll see. Sellers will continue paying buyer fees, negotiating commission payments, along with other deal points like price, repairs, and contingencies. I'm going to keep going. Nothing in the settlement precludes the seller from offering a buyer broker compensation. That's true. It simply says that those offers of compensation can no longer be advertised in the MLS. That's also true. They can be advertised on brokers' websites. That's also true. That approach prompted Lake Forest home seller John Wallaker to call the NAR settlement a shell game. At this point, it feels like nothing is changing, is what he's saying. When we have somebody out there that's saying we shouldn't pay that, that's a separate transaction. And there's another comment down here. I'll get to it. That I'll wait to go off on that. Any thoughts so far?
Yeah, I mean, of course, you're going to have buyers like, as soon as sellers that are saying, "Oh, I ain't paying that anymore." But we'll see. If they're not paying it, basically they're a for sale by owner. I mean, it may not be that drastic, but it's almost like being a for sale by owner. So I'm not worried about those people. Now, but as soon, what I like is Ann Russell, president of the
Greater Los Angeles Realtor Association. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I love her attitude about it. She's like, this thing's going to work out. Like it's going to work. The sellers are going to pay just like they have been for years and years. I don't think it's going to be the full 6%. I think that cost I think they're going to accomplish their goal in lowering the overall cost throughout the country. But I like her attitude that she's looking at it from a glass half full standpoint and, looking at ways to get it done, it looks like to me.
Yeah, and she is. So I'm going to press forward. The 107-page NAR settlement unveiled in March includes a lot of provisions apart from the commission changes. It reduces the NAR share of $1.8 billion, I think it was more than that, to $418 million. I thought it was 5 something, but anyway, a bunch to a comparatively small. The California Association of Realtors revised 19 of its contracts. Locally, we only had to revise like 4 so far. There could be more, but they've done a really good job locally to not have to change too much because contracts they're complicated. And if you go in and throw in a bunch of changes, that can be problematic. I mean, you show me a 12-page contract that turns into a 15-page contract. There's bugaboos in there. You have to be careful of that kind of stuff. But they revised 19 of their contracts, forms, and addenda that comply with the settlement. It's a lot of chaos and a lot of confusion. This is just according to one guy, said Tom Pelton, manager for Coldwell Banker offices in Palm Spring. Agents have to reverse how they've always done business. They have to learn new conversations. I thought that was well phrased, new conversations. And up until this very moment, when you said somebody that doesn't want to pay commissions are a FISBO, I never even put that together. Very smart. Very smart.
That's why I'm on this show, Andy. It's why I get paid so much to be here. We just signed that long-term contract. I appreciate it.
We got an Apple Pay coming your way. Allie Carter, CEO of California. There's something I'm trying to get to that just blew me away. Allie Carter, CEO of California Regional MS, which covers most Southern California, said organizations has done 8 to 10 webinars explaining the modifications to agents in person, speaking engagements at individual brokerages. At least 30,000 people have viewed the videos explaining the revisions. I can tell you from personal experience on Zoom calls with a third party, won't say it doesn't matter, but they were trying to explain what the differences are. I have never, in all my 20 years of real estate, seen so much participation on the whole as a group than this. Because on one Zoom call, there was this guy, he's a pretty famous trainer. There was like 33,000 agents on a Zoom call at the same time. I didn't even know you could do that. And this guy's talking about 30,000 people. I know at brokerages and companies similar to mine, they're having meetings and they're packed out. Everybody's trying to figure out how to CYA, because I'm telling you, that's how the question is, this sounds awful, is how do we make this more transparent and win-win for everybody? That's what it is. How do we make it win-win for everybody? That's what we're looking for. We just do as much as we possibly can. I get needed. Just doing as much as we possibly can to educate our brokers and agents as to what these changes mean. That's been the biggest lift for us as an organization, meaning it's a heavy lift. She worries, Rancho Santa Margarita broker. However, there's still a lot of brokers, and this is true, and this isn't judging. I'm saying she worries, however, that there's still a lot of brokers who don't know about the NAR lawsuit, much less the settlement. I'm in several Facebook groups, and somebody will ask a question, obviously, what's this lawsuit about? I saw that the other day. It's like, just retire, just put the license down and walk away. A lot of agents and brokers have put their head in the sand. I think there's probably some truth to that. Pelton and other agents, almost there. Pelton and other agents said they must learn how to explain new legalese to clients. In particular, they need to get buyers to understand why they now have to sign contracts, even though 90%, 80%, whatever the chances are, even with signing that contract, it's probably not going to change their out-of-pocket at all. They'll go into contract having had it covered by one way or another. But up front, you're signing that contract that says you are in fact liable until we go into contract. That eliminates that possibility. It's the contract that eliminates that possibility, right? I think that would be a good way to say it. There we go. Did you have something to jump in on?
No, I think go ahead and finish. Well, I just say this. I think it's advantageous for anybody to have the contract. I think it's just going to take buyers and buyers agents a minute to figure out how to get on the same page with it, because they need it. Both sides need it. You need to be in contract, and that's before the change. Okay, this is before. It used to be a bigger rule along several years ago that people wouldn't really go without the buyer's rep agreement and a pre-approval. And I think it just kind of went to a pre-approval at some time. Agents are really good at still not driving around people that it's not pre-approved, but
right.
It used to be both, and then it kind of went to just a pre-approval. So they need to have that contract.
Yeah, for people that were in the business more casually, they wouldn't ask for signatures up front, because most people are going to say, I'm not signing that thing. And then they'd lose they'd lose the potential to work with that people. Well, the way that it is, the way the contract is, the way the state of the situation is, that you have to have a buyer's broker agreement before the contract is signed. It has to predate that. Even if it's an hour, it has to predate that so that you have an agency relationship, because signing that changes our relationship. We're together now. That's what that
and
changes.
and it's just me thinking about this part. I mean, it would make sense to have that 72-hour agreement for somebody you just met. Like if somebody
Correct.
just, hey, Bobby told me to call you. They see, until they spend an hour or two with you. I mean, they don't know if they can really use you or not. I mean,
Here's the way Terry DeSelms, and I'm using his name full throated because I just have utmost respect for the guy. Here's the way that Terry DeSelms explained an agent customer relationship. He said, you have to earn the right to do business with them. You have to earn the right. And that means if it's driving around a little bit, having conversations, doing all that kind of stuff, that's what it takes. In this particular case, a touring agreement helps you earn the right to explain what's in the buyer broker agreement. That's all you're being given, is an opportunity to explain what they're going to have to sign with somebody.
right.
But you have to earn that right. I never ever forgot that. He's smart.
I couldn't imagine if you start out with a customer like that though, that and you do the 72-hour one, and then I couldn't imagine after you explain it, they wouldn't want to go into a full contract with you. I mean, that's
Well, then they get to decide, and isn't that the point of the whole point of the
right.
rule changes is they get to decide, well, a house is too much for me. Well, let's talk about that. Maybe it is, maybe you're risk averse and you can't handle the chance that you might have to pay. That they get to choose. That's
Right.
the whole point of this whole thing. And that's why that second article about August 17th is more than just the rule changes. It's about full disclosure and people knowing exactly what's at stake. Because there was a study done, and this is a shameful number. I'm not proud of this at all. Didn't do it personally, but like 68 or 72% of all people that ever were under contract with buying a house, other than the listing agent, the lister, the seller, they didn't know how the agents got paid. They had no idea where the money was coming from, only that they rarely had to pay it.
Yeah.
That was 70%. That's a shocking, shameful.
That really
is. This is not transparency. All right, so here we go. We're going to finish. I can't believe that I'm running over. Agents are going to be getting these calls, text, and emails about if the seller is willing to offer compensation, because that's what we're kind of left with. And we're being guided to not do that, but it's going to happen anyway. There's 16,000 agents in this town. You're going to get calls. On top of their other communications, we know that there has to be an efficient way of handling this sort of communications. Different expectations. Home sellers have different expectations than real estate agents, especially after reading headlines. Remember, we're talking about that, saying 6% commission rates are going away. Okay, here was the one. This is what I've been building up the crescendo. Drum roll, please. 13 out of 15 home sellers responded to an online Southern California news group, Love California, survey saying they might not pay the buyer commission when they sell their home. 13 out of 15. That is precisely the lion's den that we're headed into. Does that make it bad? No. It's our battle to win or lose is what it is. That's
I mean, honestly, they should be thinking 15 out of 15 should be thinking that, because everybody wants the best deal possible. But
100%.
when you go in there and say, this is what this is what it's going to take to sell it, and it's not going to be like, this is what it takes to sell with Andy Elliott. Like the other agents on the face of the planet probably are not going to agree to a $500 or something. I mean, you're going to have to advise the sellers. Like if I go to sell a house and I say, well, I don't want to pay any commission, I hope they respond with, well, where do you think your pool of buyers are going to come from? You know, I mean, it should be. Thank you for addressing that, because the answer to that is dollar bills, yo.
Sorry, I was not paying it. I apologize,
Yeah.
not paying. I'm going
Well,
to finish.
he had a good one in there too. Did you see when we were talking about, he threw in some chickens, the ducks, when we were about negotiations?
There they are.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Okay, so I'm going to finish this. I'm going to finish this. Among them was, I like using people's name. Among them, of the 13th and 15th, Paul Hoff, who preparing to sell his 1930s cottage at the El Canto Hotel in Santa Barbara. What a nice town that is. I philosophically disagree with the structure of the seller paying the buyer's way. Agents pushed back on Hoff's position. One of 3 agents he interviewed warned, if you don't offer the buyer agent money, they might not show your house. Now, there's people like sending up red flags. Don't say that. Don't say that. I don't know what to do with that yet. Walter, another person of Lake Forest, heard the same argument. Our agent said that if we don't put something in there, there's far greater chance that the buyer agents are not going to make our home a priority. It's not the agent. It's the buyer saying that they don't have the money to pay for it. There's a difference. Agents use the same reasoning to persuade sellers to pay higher commissions to buyer agents under the old system, and I call BS to that. Strongly disagree with. I'll read that again. Agents use the same reasoning to persuade sellers to pay higher commissions to buyer agents under the old system. What they're implying is that if it was X amount versus X less, that agents would show. That is not the rule. When you're a realtor, you show a house if there's commission involved or not. Fiduciary responsibility means that you, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, we're in this together whether I get paid or not, period. In this way this system is coming up, if they see that there's no compensation, or in this case going to be called concessions, they choose not to go because they don't want to pay for it. It's different. Anyway, so here we go. Walter, who is in the process of listing his 4-bedroom house of 21 years, said, if he ends up paying a buyer's commission, I'm just going to ask for more money for my home.
I mean,
kind of has that been, that was sort of built into things before, but now it's separate.
This is the whole thing about it is that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. If he goes to sell his house, he can't just magically add something on top. That ain't how it works. So basically you get every single person's idea of how they want to do things. And then the agent's going to say, hey, this is what it's going to take to sell your home. And then they're going to be like, well, I thought I was going to get by without paying somebody to do a job, for them to, bring me a buyer, and I don't want to pay them. That's what you're paying for, is you're paying for a buyer. You're not, so, but anyway.
And what you said before dovetails into this, in my opinion, perfectly. And it's going to be, the market is going to sort that out. For the person that says, I'm going to ask for more money for my home, you can ask, but you're not getting it.
Right.
The market will go, yeah, no.
Right.
Thank you. We're walking by. You can stay in that house, until forever.
The only person, like if he has an exact unit or a very similar home right down the street, and that house is selling, say they're both selling for $1 million, and one house is agreeing to pay 3% commission, and the other seller's not agreeing to pay any buyer commission, then that house just became cheaper. You know what I'm saying? I mean, so yeah, he's not doing himself any mathematics.
Yep.
The $500, yes. That's what I said. Actually, it's hey, if you get something under contract before August, I think it's $499. So
Stop it.
Andy will sell your
Stop
house
that.
for.
I'm going to have to beep that out or something. Oh, God. Anyway, so I wanted to just get down. We actually had more on there. I can't believe we ran over, and there's going to be more next week. But I want to show you one thing before we go. One thing. Do I have time to do one more thing?
Philip had a question too about FSBO. I think we answered his jokes, but not his actual question. No, the only thing harder about a FSBO is that I don't have professionals to work with, and I become the person between the seller, and the lender and the buyer, and I'm not, that's not my gig. That's why you have professionals like Andy. I don't, it's never a fun for a mortgage lender to be involved in a FSBO. They don't know any of the forms. I mean, it's they're asking you for contracts, and you're not that's not my contract. So
yeah, one of the things that they're really concerned about across the country is with the way these numbers are flowing. That buyers become more liable to pay commissions and stuff. That's not the right word, but you know what I'm saying. That they're going to be more and more end runs, and what we used to call end runs was where you were working with the buyer and they'd fire you, and then they'd try to go straight to the listing agent, thinking they were going to save money. With the way this system is set up, it makes people think that that's exactly what they could do, and that's called an unrepresented buyer. And that's one of the kind of the concerns, is that you don't have the same fiduciary duty with an unrepresented buyer as you do with the seller. And when stuff happens, when things break, as contracts can do, they're concerned that there's going to be more lawsuits than ever. But on a personal basis, an unrepresented buyer is handled by a situation that breaks, and they blame the listing agent. That they're and that seems like a real possibility to me. But I wanted to add this. It's almost like blooper reel. Maybe we'll start doing blooper reels at the end of the show. But these are what things. I'll figure out some music and we'll put some bloopers. We'll do it. It's a good idea. Going to do it. Here's what some people are saying. Listing agent won't let me show remember, I try to keep you up to date on the panic people are going through. Listing agents won't let me show the house unless I show them proof of my buyer's agreement. Is this even allowed? Buyer agents are doomed. That's one person's take on it. Zillow's CEO wants to eliminate agents with the Zillow super app. There's truth to that.
Yeah. Listen, they've been trying to cut out mortgage and real estate agent. They're trying to cut out attorneys. They're trying to cut out appraisers. Get in line. Everybody's trying to be cut out by AI and everything else.
Oh, snap. Michigan real estate brokers file antitrust suit against NAR. Oh, God. Eating your own young or something like that. And here's one. I enjoyed this a lot. Just ratified my first buyer-paid buyer's broker commission contract with a VA buyer. And guys, we're going to be okay, promise. You mark my words. I'm going to remember that person's name for when a deal falls through. Come on, man. We're all going to die. It's over.
Yeah, person just trying to spread some encouragement, some happiness, some success stories. It's going to all be good. It's going to be good. It's going to be challenges, but it's going to be fun.
Here I am trying to poo-poo all over their good vibe, Sorry, didn't mean that. Rodney, it's been fun. Any final thoughts?
No, great show. It's a lot of exciting stuff going on right now. It's like it's a busy time in our industry with these changes and the rates and all this good stuff.
It's awesome. Angie, thank you so much. Phil, thank you so much. Wendy, love you both. You guys are just the best. Rodney, as always, thank you for being with me on this Tuesday. We'll see you next Tuesday.